toward the end of the Magid section, right before the Hallel, we find that the Haggadah states in source 1, Chayav Adam lirot et atzmo ki'ilu hu yatsa mitzrayim. In every generation, everyone is obliged to view himself as if he personally left Mitzrayim. And the Haggadah cites 2 verses to support this. Says Rabbi Leff in source 1, it seems that this obligation to feel as if one was actually in Egypt and redeemed from there is extremely difficult, if not impossible, to fulfill. No one I've ever asked has related or ever experiencing this feeling at the conclusion of the Seder. But it's unreasonable to believe that Hashem would give every one of us a mitzvah that is attainable only by uniquely great individuals. So we need to understand, and this is our question for tonight, Emir Hashem. Chayav Adam, a person is obliged to view themselves as if they left Egypt. How can we work on accomplishing this in our lives? And it's interesting, in source 2, the Rambam has a different girsa. The Rambam's version is Chayav Adam laharot et atzmo, to portray himself, not to view oneself, but to act in a certain way that would give off this feeling that you left Egypt, which is perhaps a little bit easier. In fact, in source 3, the Gra is quoted as saying, Shizuhi havodah hakasha biyoter hamutela later below Pesach. To eat matzah, to eat maror, we can handle. Arba kosos, we can handle. But this chiyuv, this obligation, is the most difficult one at the night of Seder. In fact, the Lekepine Kodesh, Rav Shalom Bells, in source 4, says that this hasaga is difficult, therefore a person has to go mimadrega la madrega, from level to level. You start ki'ilu, as if you left Egypt, till you reach the apex of the bracha sher ga'alnu v'ga'al tevateinu, that Hashem has redeemed us and then redeemed our forefathers. It doesn't happen overnight. It takes a process. And in fact, the Tiv Haggadah of Gamliel quotes the idea of saying that from Harav Hirsch Kopshitz, that if you want to reach this level, you need to do Hachana Ruya before Pesach a few weeks. You can't just fall into the Haggadah and Lel Pesach and feel like you can reach this level as if you left Egypt. So here is the question, and obviously we're going to present quite a number of answers, but it's never all-inclusive. I like to take a number of approaches, some more challenging than others, to see how we can apply this to our lives. The first approach, and this is a very often quoted approach, is the approach that Siva Shalom and Shlomo Rav brings in source number 5. On the Medrash, on the Pasuk Atem Nitzavim Hayom, the Medrash says there were many times that we stood in as a nation. And when we stood as a nation, whether at Har Sinai, we stood as a nation, Hichiatzvu Ru'ud Yeshua Hashem, or by Kriyas Yamsuf, or Parshat Nitzavim, V'du'u lachem ki gam hametim v'gam doros ha'asidos lavo, rucham v'nishmatam nitzavos po. When we stood as a nation, it wasn't only in these pivotal moments that those alive stood there, but even future generations, i.e. us, yet unborn, were also there. And that's the idea, he says, how can you do this? It's not difficult to imagine as if we left Egypt. Why? Because we were there. All of our neshamos experienced the Yetziat Mitzrayim. That's very nice, and all of our souls were there. But how do we tap into that? So if we move for a moment to source 23, Rav Leff, in Festivals of Life, notes, he says, the pasuk to support that we should see ourselves as we left Egypt is that he took us out from there. He says, I may not be able to identify with the actual sojourn in Egypt as an individual, but as part of Klal Yisrael, whose collective soul and memory transcends time and place, this identification is possible. If not on a conscious level, then on a soul level. And he notes that there are, according to Rav Dessler, like certain time zones that we go through during the year. And each time zone in 24 has a different, memory and a different charge to it. So Pesach is Zman Cherutenu. Shavuos is Matan Taratenu. To properly access the memories and qualities saturated in these time zones, one has to create the proper connection by utilizing the exactly configured cable. This connection is effected by properly and meticulously fulfilling the mitzvahs of that particular yontif. So you may not, on a soul level, feel like you were there, but if you go through the mitzvahs of the evening, and you do the mitzvahs correctly, then you're able to tap in, your neshama is able to tap in, your soul is able to tap in to this reality, and it becomes part of your subconscious consciousness. He quotes here the Telzer Rosh Yeshiva explains in Shira Smiles that we would think it would be more effective if the Seder were conducted in a manner that portrays the slavery in Egypt and our deliverance in a more graphic, audiovisual fashion. But in truth, it's a subtle hint of the Matzah Maror and Pesach that leave a more profound impression, that penetrate